Good afternoon. Tom Ginn, G-Force. G is for gratitude. I believe gratitude is one of the most powerful words that we can incorporate in our lives. It eliminates negativity. It brings different perspective in life. It helps us in our challenges. And G is for gratitude. So I am so grateful for today. I've got two special guys I've been following for a couple, 3 months now, and I'll be introducing them in a moment, but we're in for a treat today. So I'll be bringing Christoper Rausch on and Scott Goyette here momentarily. But what I'd like you to do is just, tag your friends and share today. Make comments as you come on. We like to have interaction with you as we move through here. So, guys, are you ready? All right, here we go.
Absolutely. What's going on?
Well, hey, you guys are going on. So, hey, it is an honor and a pleasure. I'm in awe of you guys. I've been, like I shared with you in the intro, I've been following for several months now, and I just love what you guys talk about, the guests you come on, how you're impacting people. Your message impacts me, so that's why you're here. And I know what we're going to be talking about today is you're going to impact other people. That's what we're all about. So welcome. I'm just going to move right to this. Hey, Scott, welcome. Christoper, welcome. And I'm just going to leave it to you. I don't know who the alpha dog is in this group is here, but but I got Christoper. Whoops, I got Scott. Scott, you're muted.
I'm back.
There we go.
I'm back.
Like I said, I don't know who the alpha dog here is in this group. So between you two guys, so we'll just go ahead and play it by ear. We already got people coming in. And I will stop from time to time and just if we have any comments. So, hey, Robert, thanks for jumping on. Robert Bookers.
What's up, right, Robert? Brother? Good to see you, brother.
Okay. Yeah, so, whoever wants to start, what I like to do is just share your story, how you two guys have connected, how long you've known each other, what you're doing, that type of thing. So take it away. It's all yours.
Be my best, Scott.
I feel bad, man. I don't want to sit here and just jump in front of you. How about this? We'll share really nice. We're going to be in the sandbox playing nice together. You ready?
No, I don't play nice. Go, no? Scott, go.
Okay. I almost got kicked out of school and preschool for throwing sand in a kid's eye. So I don't play that nicely either. So I'm going to do my best today. How's that?
Don't be a dick.
So here we go. So Chris and I were on the same speaking network, which has since dissolved. But we were both podcast hosts and honestly would see each other's shows and never really even talk to each other. We'd be like, oh, that guy's cool, or whatever. And this was at the beginning of COVID. And then Chris started doing a Friday Night Live kind of show just to send the messages out that need to get out there because so many people were at home. And I just called him. I'm like, I don't know why we're not doing stuff together on the same network. And 2 minutes later, we had a show. I mean, it's that simple. And since then, it seems like we've known each other forever. Good summary, reasonable.
Oh yeah, no, it's so true, Scott. I mean, it was just a cacophony of just like a series of events, and all of a sudden it was like boom. It was like we just got reconnected like from birth or something like that. It was like similar stories, similar passions, of course, of helping people, and we just started diving into like, oh, what can we do? How can we help and inspire people to be their genuine self, their authentic self, and have the confidence and really have the self-love and the self-compassion to really ignite themselves within, and that's what we've just been doing ever since.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Like people are suffering right now, and whatever side of anything you're on, if you want to make sides of things and miss maybe the oneness component that we're all really one, we're in the same ocean, different boats. We recognize the fact, and Chris and I talk about this extensively, that idea of we're in this together, but again, we're in different boats. And so we're always trying to speak to everybody. And, we definitely have our opinions and we definitely have our beliefs and we definitely have things that we trust to be truth. But at the same time, we put each other in check all the time and say, well, what would you have done in that situation? And there's times where I see Chris kind of going go, this is really irritating me. And then I'll ask the question back to him and he'll flip the script and he'll do it back to me. And so we're always growing because of each other as active mirrors. And honestly, either one of us could say this. And the reason he's nodding is he's saying, I could say the same thing and would flip the script and I'd be nodding. It doesn't even, to your question earlier, Tom, it doesn't matter who's talking. We're going to say probably the same thing because we're constantly talking about how we can better the world together.
But that's also a beautiful thing, Scott, is that yet we do say the same thing. But like I said, I shared on another show that that we had done, that we both have very unique perspectives. And that's what I love about our teamwork, is that you come at it from a position that I never knew before. My whole tagline is I help people overcome their self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Yeah. Well, back in the day, I thought, loving source and and sitting, Indian style and meditate. I thought that was all crap. I was like, this is what you need to do to get going. You don't need, this is what, and now I'm evolving and understanding that. But we say the same thing, but just the beauty of the way Scott positions the language in it and the way I position it just comes together for whoever needs to hear it in whichever way they need to process it. So we ultimately say the same thing, but in different ways and sometimes the same way. So that's the beauty of it.
Totally agree. Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's fun because, even in our coaching, sometimes, we don't need to say what needs to be said. We'll hear a comment and you'll either take a certain direction and I'll take the other, but I'm kind of like going, if you say this, I'll back you up here. And you watch it kind of happen. And then you watch that person go ding, 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 and kind of wake up. So yeah, it's fun. I like it.
Yeah. You're speaking, we're it's like music. It's a common language. Truth is truth.
There you go.
When we deal within that space, we just bring different perspectives, different languages, different music that we all dance to. And I think that's one of the things when I seen you interview other people and been on your shows together is you bring that dance. I would call it a dance into play. And you guys are awesome. But Scott, a little bit about yourself. You live in where? What part of Texas are you in?
So I live in California, Texas. I live in Austin. I live in this literal blue dot in the middle of this massively red Texas shape. That's where I am. And I've been there for 25 years. And I came from Boston. And long story short, I met this girl in Boston and decided I want to just get an RV and just travel around the country. And 25 years later, she's my wife. That RV sold. We went to grad school here. We never looked back and got a 14-year-old daughter. And that's the 2-second version of that. But so that's it. Boston to Austin. I wanted it to rhyme and I wanted it to be a good story.
All right. I like that. And Chris, you're from California. You live in Southern California, like I was sharing with you before we jumped on here. I'm from California, born and raised in San Francisco Bay Area, the other California, as we, like to joke about. But
it might be one day.
Huh?
It might be one day. They keep trying to divide California. So
it will be what it will be. But a little bit about yourself. I know, your background. I know you're married and have children. I love your walk talks that you do. So, that's what I really started following you. You said, I like this guy. So, but go ahead and just share a little bit about yourself there, your family and that type of thing.
Sure. No problem, Tom. Thank you very much for that. So literally my story is I live here in Southern California in Riverside. Been married for 13 years, been with my wife now for 18 or 19 years. I'm bad at math. And yes, we have a son, Jackson. He's 4 years old. He's amazing. He's taught me so much about myself and life and enhanced my coaching and my ability to connect with other people and connect with myself, honestly. And formerly before that, I was a 7th grade homeless dropout living in the backseat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 2 dogs with a mother with various psychological issues and independencies and whatnot. And for 4 years of my life, I journeyed through a lot of different opportunities, we'll say, for growth and challenge to make me realize at one point that I was either going to wind up dead or in jail, or I had to decide that I was going to love myself and take a risk on myself for the first time in my life at the age of 17. And I left a situation that was not conducive for me and wound up getting around the right people. Went back and at the suggestion of a mentor of mine, went back, got my GED, finished that out and went to college, got my master's degree. Ultimately, the same year I bought my first house. And from there, I've enjoyed a long-standing career in corporate, which I'm glad that I'm now exited out of as of last November 2019. Doing my coaching, my speaking, my mentoring. Scott and I have our group coaching program. We've got our shows, and just absolutely just loving life, just loving the fact that I'm finally owning the space I'm completely in and having a blast with it and meeting so many tremendous people and impacting so many people and doing it with Scott. It's just been an incredible journey.
Seeing your story and following you, that is an incredible story. You growing up, living in a car with what you just shared. Yeah. It's a testimonial. Many times we look at our own situation and we think it's the worst situation in the world until we hear somebody else's story. And that gives everybody hope, and so that's pretty powerful. So, I think sharing that story with people, being vulnerable, not hiding behind whatever a lot of people might think that is, so I appreciate that. But Scott, how long you been? I know I saw some of your public speaking and those times. Scott, when did you move into the coaching arena? You've been speaking, those type of things. So both of you just jump in there. How, when did you really make that decision to go out and take coaching to the world to impact other people? So either one of you.
So like Chris, I was definitely anti woo-woo. And I was the classic, athlete guy, work hard, bust your butt, be smart. Guy who stays last and takes shots at the end of practice is going to be the best player. You got to put the time in. And I was a person who took care of my body, did all the right things to literally kick ass, do everything that Chris is talking about. Everything to me was about sales. When's the next sale? When's the next this? When I buy this? When I get this? When I get this? And I was all about being the superhero, like best salesperson, win all the trips, win the bikes, did all of it. I was always the best at what I did. And then one day I'm sitting there going, is this it? So this is it? And I'm like, well, maybe I'll buy something else. And you start to realize you're living this hollow existence. Enter the universe. Someone comes up to me one day and goes, do you do motivational speaking? Because I always hear you talking about how you balance your life. And we have a program with like a life balance speaker. And I go, absolutely. And they go, what's your fee? And I just said $1,000. And they go, oh, that's really good. And I'm like, damn it, I left money on the table. Sales 101. And so I go do the deal. And in my brain, it was the worst thing I ever did because I'm hypercritical and it's my first time. And they thought it was amazing. And I'm like, okay, whatever. And so it started to get me to think this is something that maybe I need to pursue. So I'm not going to bore you with all the details of how I got into the National Speakers Association, but let's just say that I did it very quickly. And within 3 months, I was the chairperson for educators, for professional expert educators in the group. And that was just pulling strings, aligning to the right people, saying the right things, being a good human being. And the woo-woo stuff started to flow to me. Every time I needed like an extra paycheck, someone would call me and be like, hey, would you do this $3,000 deal? And guess what? My $2,500 mortgage was due that month. And I'm like, and it just, everything kept happening. I'm like, so no different than Chris. I was just a few years earlier getting the universe talking to me. And I'm like, leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. And so finally I received it. My wife is big into yoga. We've got this group that we started doing wellness retreats all around the world, Costa Rica, Bali, South Africa. And we were taking people to these groups, getting them involved in this, self-development stuff that was, I would say, entry-level woo-woo. So for people who are going, I don't trust this, it sounds weird, but I'm like, but I'm just like you. And I did these things. Want to try it? And so we've been diving deeper and deeper and deeper into that. So when I jumped ship from corporate America to do this exclusively, it was very scary and your amygdala is firing like crazy. But what's the opposite of fear? Love. Hence my program, Go Love Now. We're going to take you from that space of fear and we're going to show you this world of abundance that literally is nothing more than the vibration of love. And we're going to take you there. And that's, when I met Chris, we were saying, like he said, the same things, but I could feel a little bit of the resistance, not big resistance. He's like, I see this, but it still sounds stupid. And the truth is, quite honestly, a lot of the things when you hear them for the first time do sound stupid. And I'll reference one last thing before I pass it on to Chris. A friend of mine, Nito Cubain, he was the president of High Point University, and he also is the owner of Great Harvest Bread Company and numerous other companies, and one of the best motivational speakers you'll ever hear speak. He said something when I was at NSA at a luncheon with him, and I remember him coming over to talk to me. And one of the things he said that I thought was beautiful, he said, there's nothing that you'll ever hear that's remotely profound that you processed the first time. You think you heard me say something today for the first time. I will guarantee you, if it's anything worthwhile, 50 people have said it to you, and it's like ding, 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 ding. Nito gets credit. And so in that moment, it really just made me realize that what we just need to keep doing is just keep saying the things in the simplicity. And you brought it up earlier, different styles. It doesn't matter who receives it. We keep saying it, no need. It doesn't matter who gets credit. Just keep putting truth out there. Keep tapping it, tapping it, tapping it. And whenever the person receives, they're part of the collective, you did your job. And so that's why I'm doing it. That's how long I've been doing it. And that's why I do it.
Wonderful. Thanks.
Bam, bam, bam.
Yeah. It's all yours, brother. Chris, all yours.
So, yeah, I mean, much in the same way, I was a corporate guy for a long time. After I got my master's degree, I was dead set on business. I was dead set on accumulation. What's the next position? What do I need to do? What I need to learn? What class do I need to take? Whatever I need to do to amass more wealth, amass more titles, and all that stuff. And then as I did that, I started finding myself trading my identity, my true self of what I was trading it for commodities. And I was trading my health, and I was trading everything else that I was about, my principles and my values, and my ethics. I was trading those for acceptance. I was trying to get into the good boys club. I was always trying to fit in somewhere, because I didn't fit in when I was a kid. I didn't fit in with my mom. I didn't fit in with my friends. I had a very small group of friends that loved me and trusted me, and thank God for them. Otherwise, I was bullied all the time. So all my life, I had spent trying to find the validation, trying to find the significance and the acceptance in my pursuits. And once I found out that I was really good at school and really good at business and leadership and all that stuff, I was like, okay, I found my spot. But through those times, I found myself driving to work and just going like, you know what, I'm really good at this. I could easily go further, but I just kept finding myself going, there's something else in this world. There's something else in this world. And from the point when in my early 20s, I have always been coaching people. And one of my big missions when I was homeless and sitting in the back, laying in the back seat of that station wagon, my number one goal at that point was one day I want to own my own house that nobody can take away from me. I want to have my own stuff. And then ultimately I want to go back and teach other people how to get through this. So one of my first jobs as a coach or anything was that I decided to become a mentor to at-risk kids. And so I got involved with the Corona Police Department here in Southern California. And I went down there and went through their background checks and started being mentors to the kids in juvenile hall, and just absolutely loved it. And was just like, wow, just being me, just being like, hey man, I went through all this stuff. And one of the greatest experiences of my life, Tom, was being invited back to the junior high school that I dropped out of. I had a really good friend. One time we were having beers. This is no joke. We were at Hooters, and I said something like, man, I said, one of my biggest dreams is to go back to the junior high school I dropped out of and speak to the 7th and 8th grade class to kind of tell them what my story is, because I've done it. I did it. I lived through hell and I did it. And I'm not anybody special. I mean, I am, but I'm not. And so he goes, what school did you go to? And I said, Brookhurst Junior High. And he goes, oh my God, no way. And I'm like, what? And I said, did you go there? And he goes, no, my wife's a PE coach there. And I said, oh, wow, that's cool. And I didn't even think anything of it. And he goes, I'm going to talk to her and see if she can talk to the principal. She's good friends with the principal. Long story short, I got to go back there. I was invited back there, and I got to speak to the 7th and 8th grade class. My first time on the court there, so to speak. I'd driven by the school and I'd seen it. And I was like, oh, wow, it's crazy. It's creepy. But to walk in there and just talk to those kids, I was absolutely blown away. And from that point forward, I was like, I love helping people. I love seeing the expression on their face when I say something. I share my journey vulnerably, because I used to never tell people I was homeless. I made up stories about we had vacations, we had this, and I never told people I dug through dumpsters and anything else. And then it wasn't until in my job, in that point of being comfortably miserable and everything else, that people started coming to me in my office. And it wasn't about business stuff. They're like, Chris, can I ask your advice about something? And we'd spend an hour talking about something, and they'd walk out and be like, oh my God, that's the best thing I've ever heard. And so instead of just mentoring kids, I was like, I want to mentor adults. I want to get adults that are kind of like me out of that shape. So I first had to get myself out of that shape. So I joined a mastermind. I got out of the suit and tie speaking, which I think you referenced before. You may have seen on my YouTube page where I was the suit and tie speaker. And I was like, just got to be me. And I went through this 2-year metamorphosis of like really discovering who I was and being congruent and being authentic with that. and got into coaching and just absolutely loved doing it on my terms in the way that I wanted to do it, whether instead of being prescriptive, like, with certification programs. And I never looked back. And then when 2019 came around, the company's evolution was changing dramatically. And I knew that I was a square peg in a round hole, and I was comfortable with that. I was like, I'm not going to define myself by what you want me to be. So I continued to march to my own drummer within reason, but I knew I wasn't going to fit. And then one day I walked in and they said, you're no longer needed. And I'm like, cool, this is the push I needed to jump into, as Scott and I talk about, jump into doing this, because again, congruency was so important to me that, okay, if I'm telling people to go after their dreams, I have to do it myself. I cannot no longer play it safe and comfortable and certain. I have to jump into this. And that's what I've been doing since November 2019. And it's been absolutely a beautiful experience in my life. And I'm just so passionate about helping other people do it.
Both of you, you're speaking the same language, and of course, I bring my language to the table as well through my life experiences and that type of thing. But something I really appreciate is, like I said, the contrast. But where did you come up with the no excuses, kick ass? I love that. And so when did you do that transformation? You bring your persona to the table. I love your hat backwards. You said you were bullied. I would look at you and I said, yeah, I would never bully you.
There's an aspect to that story anyway, that turns around. Yeah.
Yeah. When did you come? Because Scott, you were talking about the woo-woo stuff, that we label things until we get a different awareness what that really is. Right. So when did you put the hat on backwards, I guess is the best way to ask you.
No, that's a great question, Tom. It really is. It was a very pivotal point in my trajectory of being who I wanted to be. The God's honest truth is I spent 3 days with Les Brown, the amazing Les Brown. Such a beautiful experience in going through my metamorphosis from being homeless to figuring out, having confidence in going to school. Somebody gave me Tony Robbins tapes, and I joked with them like, oh, what band is this? Because I'm a huge music freak. And they're like, no, these are motivational tapes. I'm like, what the hell is that? And it was a guy that was at this motel that I was living at. It was a really good guy. He just couldn't make enough money to get out of there, but at least it was stable for him. And so I started listening to these tapes, and then wound up listening to Les Brown and all the greats, and got the opportunity to be with Les. And it was just at the moment where I had decided I wasn't going to do the suit and tie thing. And I started doing the bandana thing with the tie and the vest and my jeans and everything. And I went to this training with Les Brown, and privately he told me, he goes, Christoper, you're an amazing speaker. He goes, you have a lot of passion. You have a great story. You have a lot of energy. Da, 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 da. He goes, I could put you on stages, but I can't do this. And he was looking at me like with the bandana and everything. I got pictures with Les in the bandana, and he's like, I can do this. And I swear to God, it was at the Sheraton Gateway Hotel in Los Angeles, California, right there in the lobby. And I get chills when I think about it. And he was dead serious, just me and him, just me and Les Brown. He's like, I can't do this, Chris. And I said, I got to be me, Les. I got to be me. And he goes, I don't wear the suit all the time. He goes, I wear jogging pants. I wear sweatpants. People wouldn't even recognize me. Da, 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 da. And he started telling me some secrets about stuff. And I was like, wow, all I have to do is just put a suit on and just go act like I'm supposed to. And I stood there in front of Les, and I swear to God, I said, Les, I got to be me. I said, I appreciate you, brother. I love you. I respect you to hell and back. I said, but I can't do it. The next day I go into the room, and he says, he goes, hey, Mr. Kickass, you got one of those handkerchiefs for me? And I said, absolutely. Because whenever I go to events, I bring 3 bandanas. And I usually, bandana people and say, you're Kickass. So to answer your real question is, it was at the Sheraton Gateway Hotel, and I joined a mastermind group and got around like-minded people who weren't trying to hold me down, who weren't trying to make me safe. I finally got around the people like Scott, like we were saying, hey, we call you on your shit. You got to call you on your shit, right? Most of the people in our life go either say, oh yeah, you're so awesome. Go do that, when they know you're not going to do it, but they don't want to hurt your feelings. Or they tell you to play it safe because they don't want to be left behind. And in doing that, it was actually at the bar. And somebody said, well, what is you? And I said, I'm the kick-ass guy. I like, rad or awesome. I said, I'm excited. I'm passionate. So the whole thing, kick-ass. And I'm like, I want to create a guide to life that's not like, the status quo personal development thing. So I created the kick-ass guide to life. And then from there, it was still an evolution in what my niche was, right? Because I want to help everybody. I can help old people. I can help young people. I can help anybody, literally. And they're like, well, you want to be Tony Robbins? I'm like, yeah. Well, Tony Robbins started off with a niche in sales and a niche in getting people over their phobias. And so it was like, somebody had asked me a question like, what's the core of what you're about? And I'm like, no excuses. I'm like, I hate excuses. I said, I hate excuses for myself. And said, so being able to get people past their own excuses, their past their limiting beliefs. And then it evolved into changing their perspectives about their past, present, and their future, and just really getting out of our own way. And so I had to speak that truth. I had to say, okay, what's my excuse in doing this? Okay, I'm afraid to do these things. Okay, well, I need to step past that. And it's just been no excuses, because ultimately I could sit there and say, it could take me an hour to tell you something, or it could take me 10 minutes to tell you something. And so I just want to be more direct with a huge heart. And people love it. Some people don't. And that's fine. That's the beauty about that. And I want everybody really to understand this. Your uniqueness isn't going to be for everybody, but there's 7.5 billion people in the world. And trust me, like I was telling you before we went on air in Clubhouse, you find your family, you find the people that support and love you, you find the people that want you to grow and do it from a loving place. When you're congruent and you're just owning your stuff, it's amazing. So thank you for that question. Yeah. I won't turn back. No.
Yeah. I think that's, what you both have been sharing is just being authentic and not worry about what other people think. We all gifted. We're all have genius. We all have something to provide the world. And like you said, Chris, is that, it's going to, my story resonates with certain people, and if I can touch somebody, that's what I want to do. I love what was shared the other night about Jim Rohn. He says, all I want to do is just influence one person, let them go out and influence the rest of the world. I'm paraphrasing what he said, but, so we never know what that message is going to be. Scott, getting back to you on your why, what is the greatest motivation, purpose that you have in what you're doing? Because I really like to know that myself, and then I'll get back to you, Chris. What is that your why story?
You just kind of tapped into it a little bit when you were just talking about Jim Rohn, and you were saying, you connect with one person so that, you understand the butterfly effect and things spread like wildfire. So, Nito said the same kind of thing with, that planting a seed thing. My why, without any question, like so unequivocally, is I am a teacher, and I literally dial into source. And like, when I was going back talking about in the corporate space, I was always chasing, and I was in do mode. And Chris knows that I do this. I'll disappear for a day or whatever. I'll go into B mode. And what I'm doing is I'm being present. I'm dialing into source. I might go to the basketball court. I might just sit in my yard. I might take a nap. I might meditate. But what I'm doing is I'm dialing into source, and I'm double checking that the messages that I'm sharing are of truth, are of purpose, are needed. And I'm just a delivery mechanism for those. So I don't grade myself and beat myself up on saying, how many people are present right now? How many people did I motivate? How many people did I excite? How great am I? I understand this. The more places, whether it's Tom's show, whether it's Chris's show, whether it's whoever's show, whether it's the gym, whether it's Whole Food Checkout, when I'm bringing my message, I'm bringing it with one intent: to share it with somebody, to plant the seed, to inspire, to motivate, to encourage them to find their brilliance. I don't care. I really don't care what happens with that, as long as I know I delivered it, because the universe will take care of that. I might be consistently the person who makes that seed blossom, and I think I'm a superhero. I might never. I mean, we see artists who do this amazing art and nothing happens till 30 years later, to their art. We see writers, the same thing. We see actors, actresses. Here's the thing. If you're speaking from source and people are truly finding the brilliance, which is what I'm doing, I'm getting people to find their brilliance by giving them the information they need, or, the information that's going to help them to truly find their actual brilliance. And when I say the word brilliance, what I mean is there's every single person's brilliant. And we can talk about, multiple intelligences and how we find our brilliance. We've all heard the, specific idea of, imagine if a monkey and a fish, were tested the same way. And in the water, of course, the fish is going to win. If we say, let's have a swimming contest and a climbing contest, the monkey wins. So if we decide that everyone's the same and test accordingly, someone's going to look like a failure and they're going to fall into a slave mode, never find their brilliance. What I want to do is I want to back people up to unlearn the system that's trapped them, or they've allowed to trap them, move them out of that victim status by giving them the information that's going to allow them what I call player mode. And we can talk about that later if you want, but it's the space that you're actually in this game, realizing this is a game that you created, and you're bringing more beauty and more awesomeness and more creativity, and you're just making this amazing. And you're a co-creator in the game. I want people to get to that space and move out of victim and take their brilliance and bring that. So that's 1,000% what I'm doing. And, we've talked about this so much, like Chris and I, that it's exciting every day. When I meet a person or I'm on a show like this, or there's a comment or whatever, a follow-up, every time I get an opportunity to spark someone finding that brilliance, it is mind-blowing. Because imagine if everyone helped one person find that brilliance. And I can sit here, because I go crazy. I'm teaching college business students, so I'll watch 36 kids find their brilliance. I'll watch another 36. We'll do a show like this. You start doing the math, and I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, there's literally thousands of people this month that I literally watched a mindset shift because of something that I was a part of. And it's not because of it's because of the efforts that were given to me by Source to be allowed to plug in. And then you start going, holy crap, this is player mode. And so, that's it, man. Like, empowering this beautiful thing to make it more beautiful. That's what I'm doing.
Can I make a comment, Scott? A couple of things that when you're talking, I love taking notes. I'm going to take your nuggets and contemplate and study what you said and internalize it. But we both mentioned that we were out in the world and we're judging our value in the world based on, I call, the ornaments of life. The cars, the houses, the prestige and titles and degrees. I call the ornaments of life. And then you guys found that that isn't what life is about. And but Scott, you said this, sometimes you just disappear. And I believe in this principle, and I believe in, people say woo-woo, but I believe in spiritual alignment.
100%.
The universe works by law. Our thinking works by law. Everything works by law. And I love the principle in Scripture that says, "Be still and know." And I have to do that. I'm going to give kudos to my wife. She's the greatest example I have of being still, knowing how to be alone. And she's been doing this for 18 years. She does a retreat with no contact with any human beings, no technology. She does her writing and her reflection, and she goes on a 10-day retreat. She just got back the week before last, and I'm a lucky man. She comes back. I come back with a new woman, but people are too busy, and I think it's okay to be, disappear in yourself, disappear in silence, doesn't just physically disappear. So I think it's a powerful trait that you do, and that I just wanted to share that it is powerful.
And I also want to
your genius or your magnificence or whatever we want to call it will show itself in that quiet space. So thanks much for sharing and allowing me to put some input as well. Go ahead, Christoper, anything about your why?
I think Scott had something to add to that.
I was just going to say that's a learned behavior. Like I want to be clear, because sometimes people are listening to something like this and they're saying, oh, well, you're able to do that. I'm too ADD or hyperactive. I can't do that. I want you to understand something. If you met me when I was 20, or you met Chris when we were 20, there's no way we were going to do that, because we just couldn't. That just sounded like the dumbest thing in the world. Stop. Like, what are you, crazy? And so my point is, wherever you are, if you're listening to this thinking, I can't do that, that's not who I am, just reframe and take 1 minute to focus on breathing, 1 minute to meditate. All you need is a minute. Get used to the stillness, and I guarantee you miracles will start to happen. And I just want to leave with that, because a lot of people think that's out of their scope of something they can do, and it's absolutely within your scope, and it's more than possible. It will happen.
I want to build on that, Scott, just for a second, then I'll answer your question, Tom, because I think that's a beautiful point. Something I've done, and again, just echoing what Scott said, the self-help stuff and the woo-woo stuff. No, I got stuff to do. I used to be in survival mode, and I was in survival mode for a long time. And in meeting Scott and meeting some of my mentors and being grounded a little bit more, one thing I do to speak to what Scott said is finding that space in between activities. So for example, when I used to work in corporate, I would be gone from the house 98% of the time. I would come home. What's the first thing I would do? I'd walk in the door and start bitching about work. My family hasn't seen me. They're looking forward to seeing me, and I come in like, oh my God, let me tell you about my day, blah, blah, blah. And just kind of just shit all over the parade. What I started doing in every aspect of my life, and I still do it to this day. Like after this, if I go switch to something else, I pause for a second. I take a couple of deep breaths. I'm like, okay, I was in this mode, this role for a second, which is fine because I learned yesterday about roles versus identity, which I was a little confused about. So in one aspect, I'm a role as a personal development person, as a broadcaster and everything else. But when I turn this off, I stop for a minute and I go, okay, I'm not going to go downstairs and be broadcast Chris. I'm not going to go downstairs and be business Chris. I'm going to go downstairs and be pirate Chris. I'm going to go downstairs and be, daddy Chris. And just pausing for those moments and just transitioning from what it is that you're currently doing to what you're going to be doing, and put yourself in the mindset of what you're going to be doing, and get out of the thing of like, I'm going to pontificate or think about this thing while I'm doing that other thing. You're not being present in the moment. And that's something I've learned as part of my why. So I think that's a brilliant point, Scott. And as far as my why, Tom, great question, because I live and breathe by why. My firm belief is that when you find your why, you find your how. And that's critically important. That's what I teach people, because so many people were like me. I had an idea. I had a generalization of what my why was, but it wasn't until I went to a funeral back in the early 2000s. And God is honest truth, it was from one of my coworkers who I dug. I knew her, but I didn't know of her. And as everybody was going up on stage and they were giving their eulogies and saying their nice comments about it, my buddy Dave Riley got up there, my big burly buddy, in his gray suit and his pink tie. I remember this, and just started crying. And I was just like, wow, that is so beautiful. He so misses her. They work together. And he started saying, nobody knew she did this and nobody knew she did that. And I still get chills when I think about it. And somebody was putting like these little gifts on our table, on our desks every day. We had 130 people in the building, and she would just find little things. And you'd come in your morning, and there was like a little spinny thing or something like that, something to have fun. And I never knew that. And I sat there and I thought, Tom, I'm like, you know what, Chris? And I was in my early 30s at that point. I was still partying. I was still responsible. But I said, if I died tomorrow, who would show up and what would they say? And that's where you got to sit there and listen to the truth. And I'm like, you know what? 15, 20 people would probably show up. They bring a case of beer. Some people would be Jack Daniels. Everybody would be wearing AC/DC and Metallica shirts and Motley Crue shirts. And they would probably spend 80% of the time talking about, oh, Chris is a party animal, or Chris did this thing stupid. Or there would be a lot of different stories, but nothing of substance. And so when I was driving home, Tom, I was thinking about that. I'm like, geez, is that what I want to be remembered for? Whenever my time comes. And again, in my early 30s, thinking I had the rest of my life to live. And so I went home, and I've always been a student of pushing myself out of my comfort zone to grow, whether I liked it or not. So I went home and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to write my eulogy. I have no reason to. I don't know why I'm going to do it, but I'm going to go home and write my eulogy. And in doing that, taking pen to paper, literally, I still remember it vividly. I just let it flow. I had no idea what I was going to put down. I said, that's the way I want to do it, because I had these preconceived notions of what I wanted to do. By the time I got done with the eulogy, I sat back and I said, let me just read it out loud. Just because I when I write, I tend to think so much faster than I write, so I miss things. And I started reading it out loud. And then halfway down the page, I started having tears going down I swear to God, tears going down and I was like, wow, holy crap. This is quite a bit of different life than what I'm leading right now. Still the same, but it definitely has more meaning and focus and potential to really leave a lasting impact. And at the end of it, Tom, it said this: Christoper Rausch will have fought for what was right and what was fair. He will have risked for which that mattered, and he will have left the earth a better place for who he was and what he did. Well, driving drunk and being stupid was not going to fulfill that legacy. And so at that point, that's when I really got super serious, started my company, Master Motivators, and was like, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to go out there and help people. And my why is that every single day I'm fighting for that legacy, that if I die 10 minutes from now, God forbid, they're going to look at this thing like Chris was fighting for what was right and what was fair. He was speaking his truth. And then when my son came along, it became exponentially more powerful, being a corporate person, being home only for 2 hours to see him and thinking, man, what kind of legacy am I going to leave for him? What's my why? Now my why is to create massive content so that at any point I go, that he can go back and he can find my YouTube videos, he can find my blogs and anything else that I did, and he can see what his dad was about. Because God's honest truth, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 minutes, the next 10 hours, the next 10 days. And so if you're fulfilling your why and you're fulfilling your legacy every single day and you're on mission, you're on point, then that's what really a kick-ass life means to me. So every day when I wake up, I think about my why. If I get discouraged, I'm like, is this part of my why? And I'll end it with this, is that what I encourage people to do, once you have your why and once you have that point of reference to what you want to leave as a legacy, then you ask yourself the important question: when you're doing something, is this getting me closer to or further from my stated goal? So if I say I want to be alive to see my son have his own kids so I can be a grandpa, and I'm sitting there drinking a fifth of whiskey every night, guess what? I'm not being congruent. I'm being stupid. So when you go to take that drink, you go to take that ding dong, you go to whatever it is that you're going to do, you ask yourself, is this getting me closer to my stated goal? If not, then I need to make a different decision. You put it down and you go do something else. You change the physiology in your body and you just become more confident. So that's my whys, I guess. But I would love to know what your why is, Tom.
Leaving a legacy that I impacted people in a positive way. I can go into in a great thing, but is that I take my story and, I come to find out years later that I wasn't living to my fullest potential because I hid behind how I was programmed about money and prosperity, growing up with those type of things. I have 2 learning disabilities. I'm ADHD, so being quiet and settling down is a real challenge for me. And then audio dyslexia, and I thought I didn't measure up to other people intellectually or that type of thing. So it held me back. And so I just want to let my why is to let people know that how we operate is strictly on becoming aware of our thinking, and that we can rechange and reframe our thinking to manifest ourselves into who we want. And so that's my why, is that no matter what our obstacles, Chris, and we all have different stories. I believe we all have wounded souls. Mm. And so how do we work with that? So that's my why, is that, hey, I never lived to my fullest potential. Today I'm 71, and I lived well in the corporate world, as a vice president of a financial service company, but I never went to the next level. Not because I didn't believe I was worthy of my self-image, So my why is just help people recognize the magnificence they are. We have unlimited potential. We can't comprehend that. We all have limiting beliefs because infinite supply, we can't comprehend. That puts us in limit. Just keep the box off. That's what I say. Keep the box off and let the universe deliver itself. So my why is about my story and leaving a legacy. I was stupid too in my life. Okay. I did crazy stuff. You and I could probably have some pretty interesting conversation, just what I'm picking up from you.
Scott would beat us.
Is that right? Okay. But, that's my why. I just want to let people know that the past is the past. You control what you have right now. Make this moment the most powerful, most important moment of your time, whether it be with your children, whether it's me and you, the audience out there, being totally present, because like you said, there's no guarantee for the next moment. And what we do this moment is going to impact the world around us. That's our family, our friends. The things that are most important to us, how are we dealing with it momentarily? And so that's my why. But it's your guys' story here today. But I would really like to hear, in this journey of growth and development, we'll start with Scott. Who are some of the greatest influencers that have shifted you, brought a different level of awareness? Scott, why don't you just go ahead and share some of the people that influence you and how you operate?
So, the first one clearly has to be my mom, because I had a single mom. And, one of the things that I want to share with people too, and I want people to really think about this. One of the things Chris and I talk about is that, at some point when you're really ready to listen to your intuitive self or connect more deeply to the universe, you also have to start to listen to the messages on the outside. And they're going to come through what I always call angels, and we can call them teachers. And angels don't necessarily bring the message perfect. In other words, we're not going to see them come in with wings and lift us up and make our life beautiful. They're going to bring the lesson as is that we need. And so I will have to say this, that there's times, and Chris would probably say something similar with his mom. There were times that there was, lessons with my mom that I had animosity or frustration, and it wasn't always exactly what I wanted from the situation, but it was what was going to give me the most growth if I understood the lesson within it. So I would say this, my mom is a beautiful human being and does so many beautiful things for me. But at the same time, she would challenge me with things. Then I had my grandfather, who wasn't always there when I wanted him to be, but I would chase him, like, hey, can you play ball with me? Can you do this? But he was that male role model I needed to show me the way things needed to be done when there wasn't a dad present. So he was always what I kind of wanted to be, even though I didn't even know what he was. He was just a man. And so, in our lifetime later, he ended up living with us and passed away while living with us. So I got to learn a lot from him. But I want to say something that has become truth to me. A lot of people have a specific mentor or one person. I can honestly say that there are hundreds of people that I would plug into this, because once I created the awareness of understanding that everybody is an angel, I'll literally just kind of look at people and feel people and be part of their energy and connect with people. Chris is one of those people, and I know he has the same feeling with me, where we're sitting here like in the moment, because the moment is now. Chris and you are here now. So the answer to this question right now is you two. And so that beautiful connection and relationship, that's what I would love to see more people do, and not only base everything and say, this is the one person who's guided my success, because the other person we got to remember that's guided your success more than anybody is you. And so I've learned to realize my greatness and my brilliance in the reflection of these people that I see myself and my opportunity and my shortcomings in. And then I can learn to grow daily. So I almost want to thank all of humanity as being part of Earth University. And I would do that. And the two people, if I were going to be specific, would be, of course, my mom and my grandfather. And I can honestly say that I wouldn't be saying anything that sounds remotely brilliant without my wife. And I think we can all say that. I picked a partner, or the universe, or she unfortunately found me, whatever the deal is. She's the most amazing mirror and amplifier and complementary being to me that I could ever meet. So,
Scott, I want to share this with you. I watched one of your videos, and you're sharing the story about your grandfather talking to you about painting the shed.
Yeah. I forgot about that.
That being presence. What a great story. And I think, that's something you learn from is that was an example that, like you said, your mother, of course, and then of course your grandfather. So I love that, I just encourage anybody out there, jump on, get on. And
where is that? I forgot. When you said that, I instantly just went to the shed. Like I was in my backyard right now. My grandfather's going, well, you're good at this. Like he's like just manipulating me to do it by encouraging me, when my mom was going, hey, he's going to mess the shit up. It's like, it's amazing. Where was that? I don't even know where that's saved.
I forget. I was just drilling around. Really, following you guys, want to get to know you. So when you brought that up about your grandfather, I just wanted to make sure that that story is out there and it is impactful.
Yeah, that's cool. And it was, it's very real. Like I could see that. Yeah, like right now. That's funny.
And that's what we should be giving back, the way your grandfather did to in concept, because he could have just been, I don't know, something, I ain't teaching you. You for whatever reason, or I'm going to whip you into shape to do it.
Sure.
Whatever the case may be, somewhere in. But so, he motivated you by sharing with you the process before you get it. So I can do that, right? Encourage you to get in and paint the shed. So great story. Christoper, who's, anybody else, any specific contemporaries or historical people that you tap into, Scott or Chris, either one?
Historical or contemporaries? You know what? Yeah, I mean, like what Scott was saying, honestly, in the evolution, the journey that I've been in, I completely agree. And looking at everybody else as a mirror and as an opportunity to grow and to learn and to seek wisdom from, that's what I'm getting out of Clubhouse. And just literally, I was telling Scott the other day, it's like, I can pretty much answer anybody's question about life and, what to do and da. And I feel very confident in that. And it's taken me a long time to own that. And on Clubhouse, I'll hear somebody, ask a question. I'm like, okay, here's how I would answer it. And I would think about it and be like, okay, that was good. And then all of a sudden I hear somebody else talk and they'll say literally the same answer. I'm like, all right, cool. I feel good. I got the same. And then they'll go on and share another 10 minutes of something that I didn't consider as relating to it or something else. So I look to the wisdom of the people that are around me, and I listen a lot more than I talk now. Actually, I get convicted of that on Clubhouse. Like, Chris, you hardly talk. And I'm like, I'm listening because I am like in the company of some brilliant people. And this is where I want to draw my energy from, because they're compassionate, they're authentic as well as myself. And I love that. But originally I have to go with what Scott said, and it's taken me a while to actually realize that and confirm that. But one of the biggest influencers in my life was my mom, for a couple of different reasons. And most of them are actually what you would consider quote unquote negative, because my mother was a very challenged person, a very difficult person, a very stubborn person, a very egotistical person, and very obnoxious and straight ahead. And I grew up with that up until I was 17 years old, up until I was 17 with her. And then up until she passed away when she was 69. And so what I drew my passions from and my experience from was to see how I could not turn out like her, and really, go through the challenge of the process. I remember when I wanted to be a supervisor at work, based on the way I approach things, I thought I approached things in a positive way. If somebody was doing something wrong, or if they weren't doing something to the best of their ability, I'd walk by and say, oh, here, let me show you. Here, let me show you a better way, thinking I was helping them. What I found out is I was being bossive and trying to make, and people would feel belittled by that. And so I thought about my mom in that situation. When I went to become a supervisor, my boss said, nobody likes and respects you as a leader. And I was really surprised, and I was taken back about that. And the God's honest truth, I walked out of her office after that review, and I was like, I'm going to quit. This is bullshit. This is not going to happen. I'm a great leader and everything else. But I wasn't listening. I wasn't paying attention. I was just listening to my own ego, which is something my mom did. And I was like, you know what? Let me just suck on some humble pie here for a second. And I went back in there. I said, okay, I'm going to spend the next year delving into leadership. I'm going to take as many leadership courses you'll send me to. I'm going to read autobiographies. I read Abraham Lincoln. I read all the different greats. And really just decided, Tony Hsieh, as far as a leader, was massive for me. God rest in peace. Another tragic story. And so I learned by what she was doing and what results she got. And I changed those, and I really pushed myself to the point of almost absolute exhaustion to prove that you're not a subject. You're not a product of your conditions that you grow up in. You can be if you choose to. And so that was part of it. The other part of it was a guy named Bill White, who was my girlfriend's dad at the time. I hadn't really dated much until I was about 17, 18. And she introduced me to her dad, and it was the whole wrong side of the tracks thing. I had long hair, smoked cigarettes, I'd been out of seventh grade dropout, and she was nearly like the prom queen for her upper middle class high school, never been homeless, never dug in a trash can. They had the living room that was nice that you don't even sit in. And I walked in their house. I'm like, you don't even sit in that room? God, geez, I lived in a 10 by 10 room for, part of my life. And he poured into me, and he was like, Christoper, just because you're this and just because you've been in this doesn't mean that's who you need to be. And he poured into me, and he didn't look at me, he looked in me. And that is something that has been massively valuable for the rest of my life, is that you don't look at somebody, you don't look at what color their skin is, you don't look at what they do, you don't look at where they've been from, you look at what's within, because inside of us is all beauty and significance, and that we need to find ways to unlock that. And what he taught me about life and the chances that he gave me really constructed my life in such a beautiful way. And he used to tell me, one of his first quotes was, Christoper, you're only limited by the parameters of your own mind. And what is interesting is I've always quoted him as saying that, and he passed away. I got the privilege, after I got divorced from his daughter. They called me that he was dying, and I went in there. I got to hold his hand as he passed away, and I got to tell him, Bill, I'm going to watch over the girls. I'm going to take care of them. And it was a truly messed up experience for me, because like the one guy that believed in me is now gone, but they're never gone. So he's always been in my head ever since then. And when I've been at a crossroads, I go, what would Bill say? What would Bill say? And I sit there and I could hear his voice. Oh, Christoper. And I would just like laugh, and I would do it, and it would work out. So yeah, those two people in my life have just been massive in reconstructing my belief system.
Yeah. And you can both comment on this. And you mentioned it, you dealing with how you perceived yourself. Your ego was saying, I'm a great leader, right? And my wife brought it to my attention as my ego's in the way. And I started studying, our ego is either constructive or creative. And when I mean by our ego, mine was destructive. And not only did it impact other people, not in a positive way, but it was destructive for myself. Any thoughts on egos, Scott?
So, yeah, I want to tie in your theme too, the whole show to this too. I want to kind of bring it all together if I could.
Sure. So
one of the things that I think Chris and I, believe in so much is that when we're in this situation of saying, who do we thank, as we're self-developing, building ourselves up, gratitude is just such an amazing place to start to eliminate the ego. Because what happens is when we're forward thinking, if I'm sitting here right now, like the thing that you had shared the other day about, you know, the two young kids with Nathaniel, whatever, one kid waiting to open the presents, one kid being present.
Bo and Nathan's story. Yeah.
There you go. So in that situation right there, there's an ego component where it's like, I want more. I want to build this bigger and bigger and bigger. We're out instead of into the heart. And I think that when we start everything with gratitude, and we find the Bill Whites, and we find the people who look into us, and find the people who help us be present, that's when I think this world really changes. And there was something I was thinking about earlier while I was at the gym, and I want to interject it right now. I hear so many intelligent people, and I hear them say the same thing. Well, that's the human condition. Well, the reason that people do that is because of this. Well, that's just part of this. And everything that, you know, we're talking about right now is, how do we break a cycle? How does Chris break the cycle that his mom was in through, you know, a stopping moment by catching the awareness of Bill White? Or how does Chris take Bill White's message or his own message and instill it in somebody else? How do we shape these things up? It's got to start with comments of we got to stop saying that everything happens this way because it's just the way it is. Like, I don't know how many times I hear somebody say, well, dude, they're going to keep doing that, or this group's going to do that, or that's just the way people are. Here's the thing. The reason that we cycle through is we cycle in the macro and the micro. The reason that Chris's, you know, mom had something and Chris said the buck stops here, that I'm not going to do this, or my mom was doing something, I said that, we broke the cycle in the micro. Why are we so afraid of breaking the cycles in the macro?
Yeah.
And the thing that got me thinking this, and the reason, you know, you're talking about, you know, who are the people that impact you, whatever. I see so many people take away their individual power, you know, like, well, this person's better than me, that's why I admire him, or whatever. The reason that I'm saying, and Chris is saying much of the same thing, that I learn from every person I meet, is because I want my brilliance to be so insane that whether I believe in God, universe, or creator, whatever it is, I'm maxing out the gifts that have been given to me. Does that make sense? So I don't want to think from here. I want to be so deeply connected from heart. And anytime I get caught up, that's the whole point of what we said, that when I get caught up here, it's like, whoop, I'm going to go disappear for a bit. I'm going to go into the stillness, and I'm going to get the truth and not the formulated truth from here, because that's what keeps us spinning in this matrix. That's what keeps us spinning in the ego. The minute we realize that we're in control from here, that's it. And when I say we, I mean you, me, everybody individually in the collective. But the way that happens is when people connect to their why, they become congruent, they find their brilliance, and they start shining that light. And too many of us get our lights dimmed collectively. And there we are again in these in this cycles of saying it's just the way it is. And that is bullcrap. Mm-hmm. It starts today. We're the creator of the story, period. And so, and I know I sidetracked a little bit. You get me thinking, I'm listening to you guys, and I'm thinking of all the things that I've been processing today. And as good a time as any to throw it out there. So
hell yeah. It's free flowing conversation.
There you go.
Free flowing conversation. My point to that, and definitely as I think about it, Tom, when I think about ego, I'm conflicted in the term of what an ego is. And for me, I identify it in a different way. So when I coach people, I teach the difference between arrogance and confidence. You know, we know people who are arrogant, and that to me is a form of having an ego of like, okay, I have to be this, I have to prove I'm this, I have to represent this, or I have to show off this because of something that's missing within inside of me, you know, like the ego. I think it's good to have a baseline ego of confidence, not arrogance, not something you manufacture, not something that's contrite or anything else. And so for me, it's always been about like having those aha moments and having those people that have checked you in your life. I've had many people misinterpret, and that's one of my biggest things that pisses me off in life, is being misunderstood. I've been misunderstood by the way I look, by the way I talk. I've had people call me unintelligent. I'm like, really? Let's have a conversation. And unless you're Einstein, I'll probably kick your ass. So I've been misunderstood. And I at one point, again, with that supervisory thing, I had a perception of myself that I thought was healthy, but until people got in my shit and said, Chris, that is not the way to have that perspective. That's not the way to position yourself for true success. I could have momentary success, right? You know, we could do those things. Anybody can do momentary success, but what is our foundation built on? What is the foundation of our belief system? Like we've been talking about. And to the point of what Scott was saying, and the people like, oh, that's just kind of the way it is. It's that lackadaisical kind of way of thinking that defers responsibility from us to say, oh, that's just the way it is. If it's just the way it is, then I don't have any responsibility in taking part in that, especially in our own journey. And that's what I find with people. That's what pisses me off. That's what I became the no excuses coach for, is like, oh, well, you don't understand, Chris. No. All these other excuses. I'm like, no, you have to make the decision. You have to make the choice. You have to decide that you're going to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I'll share like a 2-minute story with you. I have a sister. She's 7 years older than me. She's got a different dad. I never knew my biological father at all. Never met him. And so my sister had a normal fatherhood, or no, a normal father. So every other week she would go see him. He had money. She would get clothes. And she would have to come back to us, where my mom and I were poor. We were on welfare. We lived in Inglewood, California, and Los Angeles. And up until the point she was 16 years old, she stayed with my mom periodically between back and forth with her dad. But at 16, she had enough and she left. I was 9 years old and she left. And she wasn't around my mom ever again, except for one other time in her life. God's honest truth, 2005, I'm in a point in my life where I'm, again, just rediscovering who I am, trying to figure out where I've come from, just really in that whole weird space, like I said, writing the eulogy. And so I decided to try to find my sister. The internet was coming out and I was like, okay. And every once in a while I would type her name. And then lo and behold, as crazy as the universe is, and it does do this, like you were saying, Tom, I love it. And that's what I've learned is like flowing through the universe. As I got in contact with her. And funny enough, she lived a mile away from me across the freeway in Riverside here in Southern California. I was like, Jesus, Maria, you literally live like a mile away from me. We reconnected for a period of time, for about a year. And it startled my brain so much. Again, I can't remember how old she was at that time. She might've been 40 by then. She was exactly like my mom. She asked me to go help her pick up a piece of furniture, and I went and got my truck and we did it. Brought it back. She goes, oh, baby brother, you could just set it on the doorstep. I'm like, this is a heavy piece of furniture. Let's just put it in your house. It's no big deal. She goes, no, it's okay. And I'm like, Maria, seriously, I'm your brother. Let's just carry it in there. It's no big deal. She opened her door. Now, like I told you, I was in a car with 18 cats and 2 dogs. Before we left that house, we had 30 cats and 4 dogs. My mom has always been the cat person. We open the door. The immediate whiff I get is urine. And I'm like, what the heck? She opens her door. My mom was a massive book reader. My mom was brilliant, intelligent. She could talk to doctors. Nobody would understand. I'm like, where did you go to school? Mom was book brilliant, people stupid. I walk into her house. I smell urine and I see nothing but books and I see nothing but clutter. I'm like, whoa, my house is clean. I have 3 cats. I'm like, no. And I grew up with all that stuff. And I was like, the more I got to know her, find out, her position about her job. She went into purchasing. She went into the same field as my mother did, the same field that her dad did. And I was just like, holy shit, look at this thing that's going on. And getting to know her, she was a victim. She was a blamer. She was everything my mom was. And one day she said, baby brother, how did you turn out like this? How did you turn out so successful? I mean, by that, I was 9 years younger than her and I was way, way ahead. And I said, because I chose not to turn out like her. I chose to take the aspects of her personality that drive me, that make me real and make me honest and make me not really care about what other people think. And she did not. And she had the life. She had the opportunity. She wasn't even around. So that's the power of the choice that we can make. And that's the power of what we can do to change our environment and change our thinking. And finally, at a point, I had to wish her well. Again, I was like, I can't have this toxicity in my life. And I tell people all the time, who are your 5? And if your 5 are family members and they don't support you and they are toxic, sometimes you got to say adios, and I did it very lovingly, sort of. And I never looked back because it just blew my mind that yes, you can have a choice in changing what your perspective is about your background. And if people are going to choose to be victims, then, you're going to find a day that you're going to regret that. So that's kind of what I have to say about that.
As I listen to both of you and sharing your stories and your philosophies and the things that who you are, you've never mentioned goals, and I'm not a person that believes in goals. I believe in visions first. The outcome, what is it going to look like? The vision of your life. And I studied a gentleman. You may know him, Dr. Miles Monroe. Have you know who he is?
I've heard the name, but I do not know of him.
Power of vision. I just encourage the audience or anybody out there is Glenn Morshower sort of reinforced that as well here recently with me. It's that outcome in your purpose in life makes life simple. We get hung up on goals. Goals are nothing more than the parts of the puzzle to create the picture. And that's what I'm hearing from you guys. You guys have visions, for yourselves and your family. And of course, then you put the pieces together. We call our goals or the processes. So what are your thoughts on visions? Because that's what when I do my coaching, I really get strong in people writing their story of their life before the last chapter. They're writing it. So what's your position on visions or creating visions?
It's a simple answer. There's 3 things you need to do. You need to create your mission, aka your why, your purpose. You need to create a vision, and the vision is nothing more than an opportunity for a trajectory of which direction you want to go in. And that identity needs to be cohesive with those 2. And that identity is built with what your show is saying. It's built on gratitude and that foundation. And then you constantly challenge yourself to be wrong. When you have conversations like this and something comes up and you're like, oh, that's not right, I'm willing to adjust my foundation. The problem with society right now is we have these foundations built on BS and built on old beliefs. And so no one wants to adjust them because they're afraid that their house of cards will come tumbling down and that they're just living a lie. And here's the deal. You don't have to do it. But on your deathbed, you're going to look at truth and you're going to go, I'm a liar and I'm miserable. And what the hell did I just do here? Fact. No arguments. I'm not even going to listen to an argument on that one. And so your vision is critical to making that mission come true. So for example, like right now, like a couple of years ago, my vision was we're going to go traveling around the world for a year with our family and see 30 or 40 countries. We just do it. We manifest it. We see it already happen and we smell it. We taste it. We believe it. We use all these techniques of universal laws and make them come true. But they're not like to the point. I create a vision and I just know it's going to happen. I don't need all these goals. Like I need $10 million. Like that's just so outcomey versus I want to have new perspective by seeing the planet. That's different. That can materialize in so many different hows, but the vision of it happening it's going to happen. Chris and I are going to be on thousands of stages. That's going to happen. It's just going to happen. I mean, I know it's going to happen. We're going to have more shows. We're going to have more followers. I mean, that's just all going to happen. So for my thing with vision is manifest it, live it, believe it, taste it, see it. It has to align with your why. It'll be guaranteed to manifest itself. And if your identity is solid and based on gratitude, there's no way you'll fail. But they have to all be in alignment. Listen to that loud and clear. Your identity has to be on truth. Your mission has to be congruent. That why has to be real. And then whatever that vision is, if you use the universal laws, you can't fail. Literally, you cannot fail. The failure always comes from lack of congruency of those 3 things, period. I mean, there's a lot of things I'll give people leeway on. I'll say, I see your point. I won't even argue that with you because I've watched that play out by so many people. Like I'm not even willing to have the discussion. So sorry. Sometimes I get like that because I hear people go, yeah, but I'm not sure what I want. And I'm like, then don't expect to get it because you don't even know. So I'm like,
thanks so much. You just brought it a whole different perspective or some clarity of how I might, when I'm talking with people, some key points there that I may be articulating a different way, but you really hit the hammer on the head of the nail with how I approach life as well. Christoper, what about your thought about vision?
Vision, I would definitely echo what Scott says, and the importance, and just to emphasize the power of visualization, the power of seeing things in your mind's eye has been critical in my growth, critical in reading. I can't remember which book it was. Usually I remember all the books right away, but the power of visualization and learning that, I know where it was. I know what it was. I woke up from a bad dream one time. I swear to God, woke up from a bad dream. And I literally questioned myself. I'm like, why am I having the physical effects of what happened in my dream when nothing physically happened? Why am I sweating? Why am I shaking? Why am I scared? And I did not do anything except perceive something in my mind. And I remember that was a very critical spot. And I started studying it and saying, okay, and finding out your mind doesn't know the difference between perceived reality and real reality. So it works both ways. It's that self-fulfilling prophecy situation. If you feel like, oh my God, something bad's going to happen, the shoe's going to drop. Guess what? Like Scott was saying, the universe is going to say, you want a shoe to drop? Let's drop a shoe. You want to drop a shoe? Okay, let's drop a shoe. So for me, it was really about visualizing. I used it mostly in moments like, okay, I'm going to go give a presentation to my team. I'm going to go, do something for the board. I'm going to go give a speech or whatever it is. And I would sit there and I would just, wherever I was driving or whatever, I would at least take a few moments and be like, okay, I see myself walking on the stage. I can hear the music playing. I can see the audience. I can see I'm comfortable. I can see I'm having fun. I can see I'm confident. I can see and I can just walk myself through those processes. If I'm going to have a difficult conversation, I visualize it in my head first. Okay, if the person's going to be combative, I see myself being calm. I don't see myself being reactionary. I see myself, if I need to say, you know what, I can see now is not a good time. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to reschedule this meeting. So when you're a little bit more receptive or whatever it might be. Sometimes I did say that. So the power of vision is absolutely incredible. And to build on what Scott was saying and what we said earlier, the power of gratitude. I mean, I look at goals. I used to look at goals as, okay, I need to get something I don't have right now to complete something. Like once I have this, then I'll feel like this, or once I get this, I'll be accepted as this. And so now instead of goals, which I love what you said, Tom, the vision of just fulfilling that legacy, that eulogy. And so what Scott and I do in our group coaching program, and we just do it, is we have people write out their eulogy, because as uncomfortable as it is, as it's a wake-up call. And we do another exercise where we determine, okay, how many years of your life do you have left? And giving that pain point to cause people to have a different vision of what they have, but more importantly, to be grateful for what we have now. And I've learned that lesson. I'm still learning that lesson. We think we're going to be happier when we play the someday game. We hope, wish, and pray that something's going to change, but yet many times it doesn't. And I've had the privilege of talking to many elderly people in old folks' homes when my mom was going in and out of rehabilitation centers for the last 2 years of her life. And I'm a very candid person. I would sit there and see somebody talking, or see somebody that's sitting there, and I would talk to them. And I would ask them a very blunt question. If you could do your life over again, what would you do differently? And that's when I keyed on the regrets. And if you see all my posts, it's no regrets, but gratitude. Being able to say that I am happy in this particular situation. I am grateful for everything I have right now, down to the fact that running hot water comes out of my wall magically, that lights come on when I flip a switch. I don't need to understand the lights. I trust the lights are here. And just being grateful and not depending your happiness on achieving something else that's really materialistic. So now, like Scott says, we have the vision of impacting the world. We have a vision of taking what's happened in 2020 and in 2021 and reshaping that for the history book, so that when our legacy is done, when we're grandparents, we can go back and my kid can come home from school and go, Dad, we're studying 2020 right now. And oh my God, what you guys went through. I remember that we had to stay home because of the pandemic. And my little 4-year-old talks pandemic all the time. He's like, Daddy, is the pandemic over? And I foresee, and I get chills. Geez. That he's going to come home and he's like, we're talking about that. And that's when the world shifted. That's when we became a global community. That's when we stopped, and we started changing the laws, and we started changing the shit that's all messed up in the world. Those visions are what keeps me charged up. And what comes as a byproduct of that, success, material objects, whatever it is, as long as I still remember to always be happy and grateful for my health, first and foremost. I mean, I could dive into that for a second, but yeah, I mean, it's great to have goals, and I'm not going to diminish goals because I set goals for people and having them smart, specific, measurable, and everything else. But yeah, that vision, that mission, that thing that you wake up in the morning and say, yes, this is what I'm about. That's massively more important than goals.
Yeah. The thing I've been studying and, through Dr. Miles Monroe is one of two things happen without a clear vision, purpose, why, all that. You're either going to quit at the first obstacle or you downsize whatever that you were shooting for. Those are the only two things that are going to happen. Yep. And most people quit, unfortunately, in their purpose and passion. And part of my legacy, you ask it, is I always pose this question for people. Where is the wealthiest place on earth?
What do you think, Scott?
Wealthiest place on earth. Of course, you can give the answer that it sounds like you're leaning into, and of course, I would say that it's in my own heart. But I want to extend that. One of the things that Chris and I are talking about a lot is how do you define self? And so when you define self, if you only define it from my perspective, or if I define it from my tribe or my greater family or my town or my country or whatever, the bigger the extension of self, the bigger the extension of how you touch things. So I would want to lean into all of humanity. So where do I find that? I would say I want to find that in all of humanity. I want to connect, much, much more deeply. What was the exact question again? Say it one more time.
Where is the wealth? Where is the wealthiest place on earth?
Yeah, I would literally, I would say the wealthiest is in the connection from individual to individual, with the exception of none. Because I think the reason that we don't have collective full brilliance is because we've allowed some of those connections to die. And in that, people get, they're never finding that brilliance. So we're only maxing out maybe 5% of people's brilliance. The second that we recharge those connections, that's where the wealth is going to come from. And that's going to be true abundance on earth and in anything beyond this realm. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And then I'll make my comment too, because I bring a different perspective as well. So
cool.
I appreciate great commentary, great perspective there. Different. Go ahead, Christoper. Where do you think the wealthiest place on earth is?
Well, I have to compliment you, Tom. Number one, this is a great discussion. I love this. I've never been asked that question before. And it's interesting. As Scott was speaking, I was listening to him, very profound and very, true to what it is that we're learning and we're going into. And I thought, okay, first I was thinking like the wealthiest place in there. Okay, let me think. How can I give a different answer than I would normally give? I think the wealthiest place on earth is within ourselves and within our power of choice, right? So when I was thinking about that, the real deep meaning of that question, it's like, where am I the wealthiest? I'm the wealthiest when I realize that I have a choice whether to continue tolerating something. I have a choice whether to, improve my health. I have a choice in where I go to find what it is that makes me wealthy. And I find that when I'm the wealthiest is when I am really super comfortable in being who I am. I am super confident in where I'm going. And most importantly, that I'm in that moment, because that's something I've spent my life pontificating and Monday morning quarterbacking my past. Okay, let me figure that out so I can critique it and make it better, or being in the future and being a survivor. And my coach taught me how to be a thriver instead of a survivor. And I never saw that through my own lens. So I think one of the wealthiest places on earth really is within ourselves and our perspective to choose what we really want to do versus what we think we have to do.
Yeah.
Maybe just to hear what you think, Tom.
Well, that is the wealthiest place is recognizing that wealth within us, and you're exercising, you're putting it out in the world. So you're putting out that prosperity and wealth and all that. But here's what I pose my clients. You mentioned it, Scott, in the area of regrets. Don't want to live life with regrets. Actually, the wealthiest place on earth is the cemetery. It's the place where that book that was never written, the invention that never followed up, the dreams were never gone after, the impact they could have made on humanity and their community and their families is the wealthiest places. Too many people go to the other side, whatever we want to call that, with regrets. And so I pose that question to people all the time is that, yeah, we got all the wealth and all the talent. And if we're putting it out there, we're fulfilling a prophecy, and we're fulfilling a legacy and fulfilling a vision. Unfortunately, most people take their talent, their gifts to the graveyard.
Boy, the 5 regrets of the dying. Yeah, we talk about this all the time. Like what you're saying, like if you hung around us for 3 minutes, you had this conversation. We're constantly, that's why we do the eulogy and we do the goal setting. Like we're doing that just to get people to create that mission, identity, and the vision to align. Like it's 100% accurate. There's so many people in this world, and I would say the large majority go to their grave without living their brilliance. And so that's why when you asked it, I was going to heart, and then I was going to, one of the biggest things is for us to use ourselves as mirrors and energizers to elevate ourselves to find the brilliance. And instead, we're running side by side in competition. The only real competition should be finding our brilliance and delivering what we've been given to this world, and we should be supporting it. I mean, you realize how abundant this world is if every one of us supports one another to live their brilliance. There's so much overflow, we wouldn't even know what to do with ourselves. But we instead compete and diminish each other's brilliance and have graveyards as the wealthiest place on earth, which is, it's not going to continue. We're talking about it. Awareness is phase 1. This cycle is breaking. This new story is starting today, and we're 3 people who are part of it. That's it. We're not stopping.
Yeah. Wow, I had no idea where our conversation was going to go when we started out today. So this is, I think, you know, I'm so grateful just to let you know that, what's happening here and how we're communicating, and whoever's out there listening and making comments or whatever, hopefully you'll share and tag this out there, because we never know who's in the audience, right? We never know who's in the audience and who we can impact and help. Um, Gee, we could probably go for hours, so um, guys feel pretty complete at this point with regards to our conversation, what we're talking on. Um, any parting thoughts, that you want to share? Anything else? It's all yours.
Go for it, beautiful. Rock and roll. You want me to go first?
You go first. You keep having me go first.
Dog, man. You'll go with it, man.
I like listening. Honestly, Tom, no, this has been a great conversation. Thank you so much. It's been a genuine pleasure to get to know you. I apologize I haven't gotten to know you. So you're a beautiful human being, and I love what your mission and your purpose is about with this show, and just bringing to light, the authenticity and the transparency of that we're all more the same than we are different. And the sooner we realize that, and the sooner, like Scott's saying, the sooner we stop the competitiveness and judging ourselves, the amount of comparison that I have heard on Clubhouse recently. And again, I go back to that because I've been listening for hours and hours every day, mostly listening to these people get up and tell their problems. And again, I look for patterns and situations. And one of the patterns I keep seeing is the fact that people don't love themselves. People are so caught up in what they have to achieve and what they have to prove and all this other stuff that they're not honoring themselves. And when I've asked people on these coaching calls that I've done, do you love yourself? Yes or no? I tell them, like, I don't want you to think about this question I'm going to ask you. I want you to say, do you love yourself? Yes or no? And this is on video. And I'm surprised that about 80% of the people have to stop and kind of like go, well, yeah, I think so. Yeah. I'm like, no. You absolutely need to love yourself. If you don't love yourself, then how are you going to love your fellow person, right? If you don't love yourself and you're mad at the things that are going on in your life, and you see somebody who has those, your automatic opinion is going to be resentment and competition. Oh, I have to do that. Whereas opposed to when you sit there and look at that, wow, that person's doing that. I'm going to ask them a question. How do you do that? Can you teach me how to do that? As opposed to being like, oh, I'm going to prove you and We just get into that competitiveness. And I always think about this, and we haven't even talked about it, but let's go back to being kids. Let's all go back to being children. 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds. I see my son go on the playground wearing his mask. The first thing he does is run up to a kid. Doesn't say, who do you vote for? What color? Obviously he sees what color of skin. He doesn't give a shit. He goes up and says, hey, you want to play? And seeing the kids just run off, they don't, nothing. Let's go play. Let's go do this. Let's go be in the moment. Let's go be playful. Let's go be curious. Let's listen. Let's learn. Let's grow. Let's put down the divisiveness. Let's put down the bullshit, the rhetoric, the judging, you guys are this and you guys are this. And how about like you said, Scott, the mirror we talk about it. I talk about the accountability mirror. Let's go look in the mirror and say, hey, am I doing something today that is going to lift somebody up? Am I going to contribute to this world and make it a better place? And God's honest truth, if you have kids, if you have people in your life that are looking up to you, whether you're a leader in business or corporate, am I really truly leading my people and my family down the road that is going to make me look back and be blessed when I'm older? And again, tying that into the regrets thing, that's what scares the shit out of me most about life is that, and I heard this story and I'll end it with this because it's very powerful. A good mentor of mine that I really love, I've not met yet. His name's Ed Milet. He has a great podcast called Max Out. He's a real dude. And he says, you know what? He goes, my biggest fear is getting to the day where, judgment day, whatever it is going to be for us when we pass, and being introduced to the person I could have been. Now just think about that. When your day is done, we're on to the next journey. And if that process happens and you get the opportunity to meet the Christoper Rausch that took the chance and went after his dreams, or I get to meet the Christoper Rausch, or I get to be the Christoper Rausch that stayed safe and stayed in survival mode, that's the biggest fear of mine. So I use that every day as leverage, as friction to cause me to become better so that I don't leave this world with any regrets. Will we have regrets? I'm sure we will, but right now I'm focused on no. When my time is gone, whatever it is that I'm looking at, going, yeah, it was a good, and thinking about, okay, I left things in place that will help people become the better version of themselves. So that's kind of my final thoughts. But again, Tom, thank you so much for having us here. We could definitely dive into a lot of things, but thank you.
Thank you. Awesome. Go ahead, Scott, your final thoughts.
So to echo something that Chris brought up, and obviously the program that I do, Go Love Now, is all about self-love. And once you love yourself enough to really be true, your cup will overflow, and then you have the capacity to share your brilliance and love others. I'll tell you this, one of the things I do with all my college students, and I've been doing this for a few years, and it's one of the reasons I started the Go Love Now program, is I walk into class on the first day, and right now we're virtual, so I don't do it, but I look at each kid, I walk up, I go, I love you. I love you. I love you. Try doing this 36 times in a row, walking up and down the aisles. You want to talk about freaking weird. I do that. I come back, I hand out the syllabus. I'm like, all right, guys, I'll see you on Wednesday. One student usually quits the class. 35, I'm just kidding. They don't really do that. But everybody stays. But when I come back, I say, how many people felt uncomfortable when, before I can even finish that statement, every single kid's hand goes up, except for the one kid in the back. He's a stoner. He goes, dude, that was cool when you said you love me, man. Everybody else is so uncomfortable. It's disgusting. Because for them to hear that somebody loves you that they don't fully know, they have this horrible view. They don't love themselves enough. So they're weirded out by it. It bothers them. And we talk about that. And then I say, listen, I got a question for you. There's two reasons I teach. One, I teach because I love this process of being able to share information and opportunity to help you think more critically and really find your brilliance. Or I just want to hear myself talk. Which do you think it is? And of course, they all are starting to get to know you. They're like, I guess you just really care about us. And then I'm like, and what does that translate to? I love teaching. You're the reason I'm teaching. So I what? And they're like, you love me. All right, fine. You got me. And then they start to see it. And they're like, but the words, they really freak me out. So then I started trying to do that in high schools, 2,000 kids in a high school, and the whole place is filled. And I'm like, I love you. And I'm going up on the stage and they're looking at you like freaks. They have the same thing. Middle school, same thing. The only place that you can go do this is first, second, and third graders. And then to Chris's point, I can go up and go, who do you love most? They're like, I love me. And they're just in love. And something happens where the one teacher says, you're not smart enough. Sit down, be quiet. You're not doing this. Where all of a sudden, the inner critic starts to develop and say, you're not enough. Mm-hmm. So to this point of everything that we're talking about, we need to break that massive cycle, because the second that's broken and we're no longer, and don't forget, that's structurally been developed from, capitalism has it. We don't want to go down this road. We got minutes left, but capitalism, of all the potential good in it, it doesn't teach me to compete against myself and become the best I can be and share my brilliance. It has the tendency in its current form to be built that it makes me compete against you, and you're somehow the enemy instead of the supporter. It's not I create widget A, you B, you C, and they work together, function together. It's let's all try to get A together and I'll crush you. And then we smile at each other on the golf course, but we want the other one to die. And so literally what's happening is, if we can go back to that, I love me, what are you going to build? I'll build something different. We'll build it together. That's the world that we can do. And guess what that starts with? Gratitude, the ability to connect, and then the ability to get excited to help people find their brilliance from that day when I can say, I love me. Once we're in middle school, it's too late. High school, it's way too late. College kids look at me like I'm batshit crazy. And if there's not enough me out there who are helping them transition through a semester, they're not ever going to get there. They're going to be old people sitting in there with their 5 regrets saying life sucked and making the cemetery the richest place in the world. And it shouldn't be like that. So that's what I'm finishing with. Thank you, Tom.
So profound, so right on. And, you guys are awesome. I have come away with a whole different level of energy, I guess, best way to put it, and awareness and that type of thing. And it's awesome to, get to meet you guys in a live situation like this. And I'd love to have you guys back. Maybe we can get a little more pointed on something, but, I think we hit some things around the ballpark here a little bit, and you guys, you're awesome. And I'm going to, put you guys in the green room, enjoy the M&Ms, right? and hang
you only have the brown ones.
After I sign out here.
I want the green ones.
So hold tight, guys.
Thank you, Tom. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for the time. And we look forward to having you on our show as well and continue the discussion and kind of probe into what your belief systems are and some of your stories are. So again, thank you for the opportunity. We look forward to it. And
it'd be my honor. In the green room. Thank you. So, like I shared in my previous during the week, you guys are going to get blown away. I know I am. I'm so grateful for that. And in closing, my parting thought is, again, we got some other thank you out there too. So I'm just going to close with this. Get back to your childlike state. That is where your genius resides, your creativity. And I'll just share with my story. When I was a child, I fantasized of being a pirate. And when I was playing with my friends, it was as real as anything else. Your imagination is, you can create your reality. Be childlike. Have a vision for yourself, your purpose, and your why. And give your best so you can part this earth with no regrets. So with that all said, I'm going to sign out. Monday, G-Force, we'll be diving again back into Gratitude Works, and we'll cover some more principles around that. So with that all said, have a great weekend, and it's with gratitude, the most powerful word that you can incorporate in your life to give you a different perspective in anything that you do. And
bam, bam, bam.
Hey guys,
great show, Tom. Great show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. You know. So anyway, I appreciate you being here. And what would be the next thing? I'd sure like to, I am booking out all the way out, but down the road, I'd like to, bring you both back on or individually, whichever way you want to go. If you're open to that, I'd love to do that. Maybe find something very specific we can dive deeper in, so we can contribute and make a difference in people's lives. So,
really,
one of the things we definitely felt like we were coming back to was stuff with kids and youth. So if you've got a week that you're talking about, youth and kids and how to really motivate the kids, why don't we just attack that specifically and talk about, I can use some of the Go Love Now principle stuff, and Chris can talk about, a lot of the no excuses, like, hey guys, listen, if I can, you can, and incorporate a lot of that in there.
Absolutely.
Okay. And let's figure out a way to invite some people who are involved in education or kids or sharing it in a way that it gets to maybe get some families listening, whatever. Maybe we give some specific tips to parents of ways you can better serve your kids so that they get off autopilot, find their brilliance, and don't get stuck and just become just another person who dies with all the regrets. Like how do we as parents? That's probably a good show right there. That's probably everything right there.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Chris?
You're going through it in one respect with a teenager, and I'm going through it in another respect with a toddler or a young child.
Yeah, it's all this. It's yeah, but exactly, dude. It's like again, I sat in that space where I've even mentioned where I made mistakes. Like I was talking about with Kayla's personality, where I was trying to make her go the full cycle. But so, Tom, one of the things I learned about my daughter, I did this thing called human design, and it turns out that my daughter's the kind of person the second she tries something, knows if she doesn't like it, and that's her personality. So we always said, if you do dance, you got to do it for the 3 months until the recital because we paid for it. What we were doing was make her to not want to try anything because she'd have to go through the karate and the dance, and she hated it. So then every time she tried something, she's like, this is going to suck. And we realized all we had to do is do the 1 day trial for free, and she'd go yes or no and find what she liked. And so we would have destroyed her ability to want to go try new things if we never learned that. And so those are the kind of points that we could share, things like that.
Love it, because there's a big disconnect of how parents, and we only do what we know, right? We mirror what we
Sure.
grew up in and around, and bring a new awareness to help parents change their awareness so they can bring their child to their fullest potential.
Yeah.
So that would be a great one. Have either one of you worked with veterans at all?
Not
me
specifically.
personally, not directly.
Same.
Okay.
I've
I
spoken
sent money to
groups.
Wounded Warrior, and I know a huge veteran who is a speaker in that space who could speak to that all day long. Definitely, Larry Broughton. I could put you in contact with him. He does amazing stuff with the vets. But
Yeah,
not me personally.
I've worked with the University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee, through a veterans program called Trios, and I've been coaching veterans there at the university. Getting people to transition. I tell you, there's some wounded souls there.
Oh yeah.
Wounded souls in a big way. So, that's an area that, my wife's a veteran, I'm a veteran, but, I didn't experience any of the things that these women and men have experienced, in the military under conflict and those type of things. So, and then transitioning. What's that?
To your point, actually, one of the things, because I teach at ACC, one of the campuses I teach at is all GI Bill. So I have a lot of students. So I'm working with veterans a lot indirectly, and I've gotten speeches for veterans, but I don't have a program for veterans. But some of my best students or students that I connect